We are never more exposed to pain than when we open our hearts in love. Sigmund Freud. Why do the women we love the most often drift away? Just when we give them everything, it always starts the same way. You meet her. She smiles. She sees something in you, or maybe something beyond you, a possibility, a promise. In her eyes, you feel visible, valuable, maybe even chosen. So you open up. You show her your depth, your devotion, your loyalty. You answer every message. You become available, present, honest. You give her the version of yourself the world told you. Women wanted the emotionally available man, the safe man. And for a moment, it seems to work. But then without warning, something shifts. The warmth fades. The replies get colder. She withdraws not violently, but gradually. She starts testing you, ignoring you, picking fights over nothing. You wonder what changed. You blame yourself. You try harder. But the harder you try, the faster she drifts. And in the silence, she leaves behind a darker question begins to take shape. What if everything you were taught about love is wrong? What if she wasn't looking for emotional safety, but psychological gravity? Freud asked this same question over 100 years ago, and his answer still haunts modern men because it wasn't comforting, it was terrifying, and it was true. We are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love. Freud's words echo like a warning, not against love itself, but against the illusions wrapped inside it. For men, love is not just affection, it is exposure. It is the moment you place your soul in someone else's hands and quietly pray they don't crush it. And when that someone is a woman whose emotional gravity you don't fully understand, the risk becomes existential. At first, love feels like power. You stand taller, speak bolder, walk with a new confidence. But beneath the surface, something begins to shift. You soften your edges to fit into her world. You compromise your focus to meet her needs. You silence your instincts to keep the peace. And in doing so, you trade your center for the illusion of closeness. This is how most men lose themselves, not in war, but in love. You think you're building something eternal, but what you're really doing is surrendering your frame for approval. And the more you give, the more invisible you become. Not because she is cruel, but because your need makes you disposable. Women don't betray men at their weakest. They simply recoil from what no longer commands reverence. Love without direction turns a man into a mirror, reflecting her moods, her needs, her chaos, until he no longer recognizes the man staring back. This is not romantic. It is tragic. Because in his pursuit of closeness, he forgets the one thing she was drawn to in the first place, his gravity. You were told to make her feel safe, to be stable, gentle, consistent. You were told that the secret to a woman's loyalty lies in creating peace, in removing uncertainty, silencing doubt, offering unconditional affection. But what if Freud was right? What if that version of love, the one built on safety, is exactly what suffocates her desire? Because what Freud saw, and what most men still deny, is that female desire does not ignite in the absence of tension. It isn't drawn to serenity. It is drawn to intensity, to power restrained, to a storm she can feel but cannot tame. It's not safety she craves. It's polarity. She wants to feel your strength not through the words you say, but through the weight you carry silently. She doesn't want to see you fold just to keep her. She wants to feel the burn of your independence, that you choose her but don't need her, that you stay but could leave at any moment and still remain whole. That is the paradox of feminine desire. The more secure you try to make her feel, the more her instinct searches for the edge, the sharpness, the unknown, the gravity. Because safety breeds comfort, but tension breeds longing, and longing is the birthplace of passion. So no, she doesn't want you to be her emotional sanctuary. She wants to feel the electricity of your self-possession. The kind of masculine presence that doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't flinch, not out of coldness but because it's rooted. She doesn't want peace. She wants to feel the pulse of your power, just beyond her reach. She says she wants a nice guy. A man who listens, who communicates, who shows up on time, texts back quickly, and holds her gently. She says she wants peace, emotional openness, and consistency. But then she leaves. Not in anger, not always with reason, sometimes without a word at all. She disappears into silence, into distraction, into the arms of the very man she told you she didn't want, the one who didn't reply, who wasn't always available, who carried himself like he had somewhere else to be. And you're left questioning everything. Was she lying? Was it your fault? Or is there something deeper at play? Something unconscious Freud believed there is. He saw the terrifying contradiction at the core of female desire. What she consciously claims and what she is instinctively drawn to are not always the same. And that contradiction isn't malice, it's biology. You gave her transparency. But it was mystery that moved her. You gave her reassurance. But it was your emotional distance that haunted her imagination. You gave her stability. But it was danger-contained, restrained masculine that lit her fire. This is the cruel irony men face today. You followed the script. You played the role society gave you. And still, she left. Because desire in its purest form doesn't bloom in clarity. It blooms in contrast, in unpredictability, in the pull between what is known and what can never fully be claimed. She says she wants to feel safe, but she stays for the man who keeps her guessing. Not because she is cruel, but because nature wired her to seek depth, and depth lives in the unknown. Desire doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for logic. It doesn't care about your resume, your good intentions, your therapy sessions, or your moral compass. Desire moves beneath the surface, in the body, in the blood, in the unconscious shadows where instinct lives. Freud knew this. He spent his life listening to women, not just what they said, but what they couldn't explain. He called female sexuality a dark continent, not because it was evil, but because it was uncharted, mysterious, and beyond the tidy maps of society. That's the truth most men never hear. A woman's desire is not a democratic process. It is not governed by fairness, consistency, or virtue. It's governed by something ancient, a hunger that predates culture. You can't negotiate your way into it. You can't nice guy your way into it. Because desire isn't activated by what's correct. It's activated by what's real, by presence, polarity, and unconscious power. And this is where so many men lose themselves. They think if they just act right, if they say the perfect words, if they follow the script society gave them, that love will follow. But love without desire is just comfort. And comfort is not what awakens her fire. She doesn't feel drawn to you because you're predictable. She feels drawn when your presence vibrates with something wild, something restrained but potent, the storm you carry in your silence. You can't convince a woman to want you. You can only become the man whose very existence disrupts her logic and speaks to something deeper. You were told to be open, to be vulnerable, to show her your fears, your doubts, your softness, and in doing so, prove your authenticity. You believed that emotional transparency would be the bridge to lasting love. So you gave her everything. You wrote her long messages. You shared your traumas. You responded instantly. You offered full access to your inner world, not because you were weak, but because you thought vulnerability was strength. But what happened? She started pulling away. Her texts became colder, her gaze more distant. She stopped asking questions, stopped reaching out. You began to shrink, to overthink, to over-explain, desperate to bring back the warmth that used to be effortless. And in your confusion, a silent truth emerged. You were no longer a mystery. Freud called this the death of desire in certainty. When a man becomes fully known, fully reachable, fully available, he loses the magnetic pull that once made him irresistible. Because desire doesn't live in complete emotional exposure. It lives in contrast, in containment, in the unspoken. You thought your openness would make her stay, but it only made you predictable. And predictability in the realm of instinct is death to passion. This isn't about manipulation, it's about polarity. The man she desires doesn't hand her every piece of himself on a silver platter. He reveals slowly through presence, through silence, through selective depth. He doesn't hide. But he doesn't collapse either, because his power lies not in what he gives away, but in what he guards with sacred gravity. Desire doesn't grow in comfort. It grows in friction, in the space between presence and absence, approach and retreat, yes and not yet. This is where so many men unknowingly kill attraction. They mistake consistency for connection. They believe the more available they become, the more wanted they'll be. But the human heart doesn't respond to what's always there. It longs for what it can't fully hold. Freud called it the repetition compulsion, our unconscious drive to revisit what wounds us, not to heal but to feel. Women shaped by evolutionary pressure to test, choose, and survive are not attracted to comfort. They are drawn to emotional tension. Not because they enjoy chaos, but because it reveals something deeper: strength. You think she left because you weren't loving enough. But what if she left because she had all of you? Attraction dies when there is no distance left to close, no mystery left to explore, no emotional edge left to walk. She doesn't crave your constant reassurance. She craves the moment you withhold it, not out of cruelty, but out of sovereignty. The moment you don't flinch when she pulls away. The moment you remain grounded in silence when she stirs the storm. It's in that tension that her instinct lights up. Not because you're playing games, but because you're not easily moved. You're not emotionally dependent. She feels most alive not when you chase her, but when she's pulled towards something she can't quite tame. And that pull, that's the spark. That's where desire lives. She's not trying to destroy you. She's trying to find you. You interpret her silence as punishment, her mood swings as manipulation, her unpredictable behavior as immaturity. But what if it's something else? What if underneath the chaos she's searching for something her conscious mind cannot name, but her instincts must confirm? Freud didn't believe women tested men to be cruel. He believed they tested to discover, can he hold, can he lead, can he remain whole under pressure? Because her unconscious is not looking for your politeness. It's looking for your gravity. When she pulls away, when she challenges you, when she throws emotional lightning into your calm sky, it's not because she wants you to collapse. It's because she needs to feel that you won't. Most men fail these tests not because they're bad, but because they react. They argue. They explain. They panic. And in that reaction, they reveal something fatal: emotional dependence. She doesn't want to break you. She wants to feel the edges of your strength. Can you love her without being consumed by her? Can you say no without needing her to approve? Can you stay grounded while the winds of her emotions swirl around you? These aren't games. They're signals. Signals that she is looking for a man she can trust with her surrender. Because if you can't stay centered through her storms, she won't feel safe to open. She won't feel safe to soften. She won't feel safe to desire. And what begins as testing ends in leaving if you don't rise as the man she's instinctively searching for. She doesn't want your collapse. She wants your containment. You thought that loving her meant revealing everything, that being vulnerable meant giving her access to every crack in your armor. You thought openness was the key to connection, so you gave her your fears, your doubts, your need for reassurance. And for a while, it felt intimate. But slowly, something changed. Her eyes grew distant. Her tone sharpened. Her warmth faded. You tried harder, more texts, more affection, more emotional honesty, and still, she drifted. Why? Because while she may have asked for transparency, what she craved was your center, the part of you untouched by emotion, unmoved by approval, unreachable by insecurity. Freud understood this well. He knew that true masculine power is not measured by how much a man shares, but by what he's able to hold without leaking. Containment is not coldness, it's depth, discipline, gravity. It means standing tall in silence when she lashes out. It means staying composed when she's unraveling. It means not needing her love to remember your worth. She wants to feel your emotional capacity not through chaos, but through control. The quiet masculine restraint that says, I am not here to be rescued. I am here to remain. Because when you collapse into her storms, you become something else. Not a man she respects, but a boy asking for comfort. And no matter how much she loves you, she cannot desire what she has to emotionally carry. What ignites her desire isn't your emotional availability, it's your emotional containment. You were lied to, not maliciously, not directly, but slowly over time through culture media, modern psychology, and the soft whispers of well-meaning advice. They told you, be open, be gentle, be emotionally available, show her everything, express every thought, every fear, every need. And you believed them. You dropped your armor. You replaced silence with explanation. You gave up mystery for transparency. You buried your instincts under the weight of emotional compliance, thinking this would make you worthy of love. But instead of bringing her closer, she slipped away. Because what they didn't tell you is this: the more emotionally exposed you become, the less magnetic you feel. Not because you're weak, but because you've become too reachable. Freud warned of this inversion. He saw how repression shapes civilization, how instincts, when denied, don't disappear. They distort. And in our modern push for emotional safety, we've erased the very qualities that once made men desirable. Strength, restraint, direction, polarity. The modern man was taught to lead with his feelings. But Freud would say a man must first lead with his structure, because without it, your openness becomes overexposure. Your sensitivity becomes self-abandonment. Your honesty becomes neediness. And the tragedy, you did everything right and lost her anyway. Not because you weren't kind enough, but because you were misled. She didn't want your surrender. She wanted your spine. And until you reclaim it, love will always feel like a battlefield you can't win. Masculinity is not dominance over others. It's dominance over self. The world tells you that power is about control over outcomes, over people, over women. But Freud saw through that illusion. He knew that the man who chases, who begs, who reacts, is not in control at all. He is a slave not to her, but to his own unmastered impulses. True masculine power begins where reaction ends. It's the ability to feel anger and turn it into ambition, to feel lust and transmute it into discipline, to feel heartbreak and alchemize it into legacy. Freud called this sublimation the redirection of primal urges into higher order purpose. And in that transformation, a man becomes something more than emotional. He becomes formidable. Because a man who is mastered by his hunger is predictable. He's the type who collapses at rejection, who over-pursues, who sacrifices mission for attention. He may call it love, but it's need. He may call it strength, but it's exposure. And no woman reveres a man who cannot restrain himself. She may enjoy his desire, she may even use his obsession, but she will never kneel to it. She only surrenders to the man who doesn't surrender to himself. So ask yourself, can you sit in your longing without acting on it? Can you walk away from what tempts you not in bitterness, but in silence? Because the man who tames his chaos becomes magnetic. Not because he's trying to be, but because his very presence tells a deeper story. I do not need to be chosen. I choose myself. We were told that equality would save relationships, that if men softened and women stepped up, everything would finally balance. That fairness would bring harmony, and emotional openness would fuel eternal connection. But something went wrong. Because while balance may create peace, it doesn't create fire. Freud understood that desire doesn't thrive in sameness. It thrives in polarity, the magnetic tension between opposing energies, masculine and feminine, direction and flow, stillness and storm. She doesn't want your obedience. She wants your anchor. You thought that listening more, giving more, agreeing more would earn you love. You were taught that being a good man meant being safe, compliant, endlessly available. But in doing so, you became soft, predictable, emotionally mirrorable. And when the polarity vanished, so did the passion. You tried to become her equal, but she was longing for your opposite. Not to dominate her, not to control her, but to hold a form she could surrender into, not because you demanded it, but because your very being gave her something solid to trust. This doesn't mean inequality. It means asymmetry, a psychological dynamic, not a social hierarchy. Love isn't destroyed by power. It's destroyed by the lack of it. So no, she doesn't want another version of herself in a masculine shell. She wants the gravity she can orbit, the stillness she can flow around, the tension that awakens her feminine core. Polarity isn't toxic, it's ancient. And when you reclaim it, so does she, not through words, but through surrender. Because passion was never born from sameness. It was born from charge. She can love you. She can care for you. She can even cry for you. But she cannot desire you if she has to mother you. Freud saw this clearly. He knew that when a man becomes emotionally dependent on a woman, when he seeks comfort instead of containment, soothing instead of strength, the polarity collapses. He stops being her lover and becomes her responsibility. At first, she may offer you empathy. She may hold space for your pain. She may even praise your vulnerability. But over time, her body begins to retreat. Her instinct recoils not out of cruelty, but out of confusion. Because the very energy she was drawn to, your independence, your direction, your edge, is now buried under emotional need. She didn't fall for a boy seeking approval. She fell for a man with a mission. And when you ask her to become your emotional caretaker, you unknowingly strip her of her femininity. Because now she must protect you instead of open to you. She must lead where she longed to follow. She must give where she was aching to receive. And slowly, the fire dies. She tests you not to torture you, but to see if you will stand, if you will remain rooted in your own gravity, even when she pulls, withdraws, breaks down. Because the man she desires isn't the one who clings, it's the one who holds. And if you collapse into her arms, not in strength, but in emotional dependence, she may still hold you, but she'll never burn for you again. You were never meant to orbit someone else's life. You are not here to earn love by appeasing it, but to attract it by embodying purpose. A woman may admire your kindness, but she's drawn to your direction, the clarity of a man who knows who he is without asking her permission. When you abandon your path to prioritize her moods, her needs, her validation, you don't become lovable, you become forgettable. She wants to feel your pull, not your pursuit. The truth is simple, but not easy. You are the gravity she responds to, not the gravity that bends to her. So build a life so full, so focused that whether she stays or leaves, you remain unmoved. And in that stillness, she finds something rare. A man she cannot own, but wants to follow. The most powerful shift a man can make is this: stop seeking validation, start living with intention. You don't earn respect by proving how emotionally available you are. You earn it by becoming unshakable, grounded in purpose, restrained in emotion, and centered in self-respect. Women don't desire a man who gives everything away. They desire a man who knows what to keep. The lesson isn't to become cold, but to become clear. Clear in your values, clear in your boundaries, clear in your direction. Because when your life is guided by mission, not emotion, you stop asking to be loved and start attracting it by who you are. And that's when everything changes.